Time for us to check in with Dr. Joe Schwarcz, host of the Dr. Joe Show here on CJAD, Sundays at 3. He's also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society. And Joe, we're starting today with something that actually came up on the show the other day. My producer, Alice, brought up this idea of something called blue spirulina. Now, I've heard of spirulina before, but I did not know it's considered a superfood. That's how it's commonly referred to. So we said we were going to talk about this, and I know you have an issue here. What's the problem with spirulina, other than nothing is a superfood?
Okay. So I read the article that you guys sent me. It's about 850 words. It comes from a reasonably reputable source. It's a newsletter called Healthline, which I do look at, and it's pretty good. Anyway, what I did is I first counted the number of times the word may appeared in this short article, and the number of times the word suggest or possible or potential appeared. Well, there were 21 mays and 15 suggest, possible, or potential in this short article. Mm-hmm. These are what, in the sort of the skeptical world, we call weasel words, because for may, you can just as well substitute may not. The idea here is to create a positive impression without making a commitment. That's really what these weasel words are all about. For those people who don't know, spirulina is actually a type of bacteria. And sometimes they call it algae, which is technically incorrect. It really is a single-celled organism, and it's a bacterium. And it grows in lakes, it grows in ponds. Sometimes it is referred to as pond scum. It's this green sort of scum that you see on the surface of lakes. Now, it does have some nutrient qualities. It is pretty high in protein, but not in the amounts that people would consume. People would never consume this in significant enough amount so that it would give them a source of protein. I actually first became aware of this whole spirulina business, believe it or not, back in 1980 when I first wrote about it, because there was an article in the National Enquirer at that time suggesting that one of the amino acids, phenylalanine, which is present in spirulina, is good for weight loss, that it curbs the appetite. Well, of course, there was no evidence for that whatsoever. It was a marketing gimmick, and there were a lot of issues with that. Eventually, the companies that were selling it at the time were taken to task. There were lawsuits for false advertising, etc. And then spirulina was sort of under the radar for a while until the blue spirulina emerged. Now, spirulina is actually sort of a greenish, bluish color. The green is chlorophyll. That, of course, is the pigment that allows for photosynthesis. Now, if you remove the green pigment, if you remove that coloring, you have a blue pigment that is left behind. So that is what blue spirulina is. It is spirulina, which is only the blue coloring. It's called phycocyanin. So it is a pigment, and it does have a use. The use is in coloring, food coloring, because, today there's a lot of issues about the so-called synthetic or artificial food dyes, and replacement with natural dyes is desirable, and that's what blue spirulina can do. However, the health qualities of the amount of blue spirulina that you would have in any kind of food would be absolutely insignificant, because the amount of this blue coloring is essentially insignificant. It's a very potent blue color, so you don't need very much of this. So the fact that this pigment, the phycocyanin, actually has antioxidant properties, which it does, that's interesting academically, but not in the amount that you would encounter in your diet or in a capsule that you would take or in a pill that you would take. Now, indeed, when you scrutinize the scientific literature on spirulina, you will find all sorts of studies about improved cardiovascular health, about anti-diabetic potential, about possible reduction in neurological diseases. All of these are in vitro or animal studies, meaning in the lab or in animal. What we look for in science, of course, is the clinical trial, which means humans, which means having tried something on people and having shown that it has a benefit. Not a maybe or not a suggest or not a potential, not a possible, but it does have some sort of effect. That's what we look for. But when you look at the scientific literature on spirulina, you don't find that. You find some studies in the Petri dish, you find some studies in animals, which you cannot relate to people. People are not giant rats, and we are not giant test tubes. So we need the human clinical evidence. So when someone goes on the web and starts surfing to look for benefits of blue spirulina or blue-green algae, they will come upon all kinds of websites, many of them by multi-level marketers, which of course is a questionable thing in the first place, that will tout all kinds of benefits, and they will tell you that it will change your life, that your cholesterol will go down, your blood pressure will go down, you won't be diabetic anymore. But none of this is based on any kind of scientific research.
Okay.
So this is why, I always look for those weasel words, the maze and the potentials and the possible.
So, Joe, if I can just stop you then, you go ahead and do this, you buy this. Really, it's not going to hurt you. It's not necessarily, obviously, as you're outlining, going to help you very much because you can't take it in quantities that would. So you're just wasting money here? Is that the basic idea?
I think so. You're just wasting money. There was at one time that Health Canada had to recall a number of these because there's a natural toxin that is present in algae called microcystine, which is pretty nasty stuff. But supposedly the marketers have learned to control for that. Okay. But at one time, Health Canada recalled a number of these products. But today, I don't think we really have to worry about that. It's not going to hurt you, except in the pocketbook, where it can hurt you very significantly.
Joe, I have 60 seconds. I saw a story this week. Beyond regular sugar-sweetened soft drinks, even now they're saying artificially sweetened soft drinks can cause liver disease. What's this about?
Right. This is another one of those studies that is based on looking at large-scale epidemiological trials where people fill out food frequency questionnaires over years, and then researchers look at these years later when their disease has manifested and see what the reaction is. And what they found is that people who are consuming any kind of soft drink, whether it's sugar-sweetened or artificially sweetened, is linked to liver problems. However, I think this is a classic reverse effect. I think here the story is that people who already have poor health are much more likely to resort to drinking an artificially sweetened beverage. I think it is quite unreasonable that both sugar or an artificial sweetener would have the same effect on the liver. I think that's not reasonable. So I think this is just one of these artifacts that comes out of scrutinizing the literature and looking for associations. And of course, an association never proves a cause and effect relationship.
Okay. By the way, does stevia count as a sweetener, as an artificial sweetener?
Yes, it does. It does.
Even though it's from a plant?
Yeah, it comes from a plant. Anything that is not sugar in terms of sweeteners is referred to as a sugar substitute. Now, sugar substitutes fall into different categories. I mean, stevia is a sugar substitute, even though it is not artificially made in the lab, whereas aspartame is a sugar substitute and it's artificially made. But whether it comes from a plant or comes from a lab is irrelevant in terms of its effect.
Okay, more bad news for me. All right, Dr. Joe, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You can check out Dr. Joe's show Sundays at 3 here on CJAD.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.